Fabulous. Welcome, everybody. We're so happy to welcome you all in. Welcome to the inaugural launch of our new student series, celebrating the remarkable journeys and achievements of academyEX graduates who are all reshaping the industries and driving innovation for which they touch. Our mission is to create impactful futures here at academyEX. And in this situation, Matthew Cutts is exceptional.
Hmm.
Welcome, Matthew, to our student series. We're thrilled to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's absolutely brilliant to be part of this. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, I'm so excited. Like we do all of our sessions, we start off with a karakia to welcome the space so that we all get into that learning frame of mind and we become part of the community with which we are entering. So me karakia tato, ko te kawa o runga, ko te kawa o raro, ko te kawa ora, ko te kawa ora. E rongo e whakairihiria ki runga, turu turu o whiti, whakamaua kia tina, tina huie tai kie. Welcome once, welcome twice, welcome three times to every single person who is joining us here today. Ko Perrin Roland Toko Inawa. I am the Chief Product Experience Officer here at academyEX, and I drew the long straw in order to have this conversation today. So, Matthew Cutts, tell me your story.
Oh, my story. Okay, where to start? I'll start with the career that you know about. Well, I was born and raised here in New Zealand. I left New Zealand when I was 17.
Wow.
I did my final year of high school in Germany. When I was there, I discovered, I don't know how, a love for theatre. And I decided to pursue that. I moved back to New Zealand, earned a bit of cash to finance my journey, and moved to London. And very quickly, I was performing in my first West End show. Within 18 months of moving to London, I had no training. It was just something that I discovered I had a talent for. Yeah, did a show, and I ended up doing that for about 25, 27 years, I think, in the West End of London, and also in Germany, amongst other places. Uh, anyway, that I got to the end of that road, needed new challenges, and moved back with my wife to New Zealand. And that change was a big one for me. I discovered that I was going to have to prove that I was still capable of learning. My transferable skills were not necessarily demonstratable at that point. And so I signed up to go to Tech Futures, as it was then, and do the master's degree. So that is kind of that journey, that big 30-year period. From there, I am where I am now, which is working in communication coaching and public speaking coaching. So that's kind of a very, very brief overview of how I got to where I am now.
That's fantastic. So the big question that I have for you now is, are you excited for Wicked and have you already ordered your movie tickets?
do you know do you know what? I haven't even seen the show. I haven't seen it. I don't know any of the music.
I feel like you're
Um,
cutting us down on this West End
I
thing.
I'm terribly sorry. I mean, that's the thing. I was always, you remember, it was a job for me. I would go in and do. I had very little time to go and see other shows. I was performing 8 shows a week,
Oh,
so I
fair.
didn't really have the time. And so when I did have the opportunity, I would a lot of the time I'd go and see a band play or different things like, because
Going to
also
the theater was a busman's holiday.
it was, and it was very, I found it really difficult to sit back and enjoy a piece of theatre for what it was. It's especially a musical, as opposed to a play. A musical, most of the time I would know a lot of the people in the cast, and you're sitting there judging people's decision making and choices when it comes to the performance and the way that the show's been put together. Might be lighting cues and staging and things like that. So that was it was a busman's holiday.
That's fascinating that something as emotive as musical theater, especially at the echelons that you were performing at, was the job. What then was your passion or is your passion?
Oh, oh, it I think it started out as my passion, creating.
Right.
Quite simply, I loved the the creative process, and I think I found that difficult in performing in theatre. I had a great lifestyle and a good wage, and usually the rehearsal period was amazing. You would come together with a group of people and you would create a piece of theatre, and that was phenomenal. That 4 week period before a show opened, and then it was opening night, and then it was essentially maintaining the product, uh, so that the audience were going to be, delivered something consistently. So a lot of the creativity was taken out of it when you're in a long running show, uh, and it's definitely one of the reasons that I left. I put it this way: when I was doing my first show, which was Starlight Express, I was probably halfway through that contract. I would have been 21 years old, and I started doing a correspondence course for a law degree because I
Wow.
was already at a point where I needed a new challenge. Uh, yeah, so
So not only do we know that you can sing and dance, but we can, you can do it on roller skates. So this is
yeah,
also information for us.
well, that was amazing. That was my first job, so I couldn't dance. Well, I could only sing. I'd
Okay.
never, I'd never done any acting before. I couldn't dance, and I'd never roller skated.
Jinkies.
So
So they like shoved you out there and said, "Stay on your feet."
pretty much, yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, I can only imagine then, from that, what is the most exciting thing you're working on right now, and is it on wheels?
It's definitely not on wheels. I haven't had my skates on for many years. No, you know what? I've got to be honest with you. The most exciting thing I'm working on at the moment is myself,
Okay.
and working to make sure I'm in a position to deliver the skills that I would like to offer others, and those kind of things. I think it's really, really important to take a step back sometimes and say, actually, what do I need to work on here on myself to make sure I'm, delivering, benefit to other people. And I haven't done that for a long time. So it's actually quite exciting to say, hey, hang on a second. Okay, let's look at me for a minute. And if you were to compare it to technology, it's very easy for us to go and, buy a new piece of software, and then we get home and realize that our operating system isn't up to the job anymore. So we have to look at upgrading that. And I suppose that's what I'm doing at the moment, as well as preparing my own offerings, is to look at how I can look after myself and position myself in the best way. Yeah.
This is a wonderful trope. You're upgrading your operating system. It's one we use here at academyEX when we
Okay.
say, if you're not constantly upgrading yourself, then you're going to find yourself, not able to do the work of the future.
Yeah.
We haven't quite nailed this message yet, so we might need your help.
Yeah.
Tell me, once what are some of the things you're looking for with your upgrade? What would you expect to see from yourself as you move through this process?
Yeah, probably to the and I'm sure it's a lot of something that a lot of people struggle with, is just the belief that, you know in your purpose and how you're going to get there.
Mhm.
um it's because it is, in a way, it's very, learning is one of those things that we know what we need to learn, uh, but taking it to the next level and making sure that we're learning intentionally, to say, okay, I know that I can learn this, but how am I going to be able to implement those learnings in the future, and deliver something that is of benefit for other people, or to be able to at least communicate what I've learned. I think it's an important step that, we quite often forget when we look at learning, is say,
Mm.
how can we implement what we've learned, rather than just take it in and, let it sit there.
Fabulous. That's you're just lining these softballs up for me, which I can't tell you. This is it's no, we haven't rehearsed this.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, when you talk about implementing what you've learned, what have you implemented from your formerly Tech Futures Lab, now academyEX experience? How have you taken your masters of technological futures and applied that?
Oh, there's uh, a lot of learnings. I'm very fortunate that I had a career which forced me to learn how to learn. Um, So I didn't struggle too much when I came into Tech Futures Academy EX. With that, I think probably the biggest learning was that I was in a new environment, and just to be quiet sometimes. I had so much to learn, and sometimes I just needed to sit back and, rather than putting my hand up and go, oh, I have a thought on this, to say, let's just sit back, take a moment to listen, and listen intentionally, not just actively. Like, and intent is my big word, I've got to be honest. Yeah, so I think that would be the biggest one, is to just give yourself time to reflect. Um, that's one of the things that I took away. One of the main ones that I took away from learning there. Give yourself time to reflect on what you've learned. You know.
I love that someone who is now working in the field of communications and storytelling is saying his one of his biggest implementations is the ability to be silent and to listen.
Oh,
W- Tell me how that plays into your industry. Tell me
yeah.
how why that seems like the most important underrated skill in a storyteller.
Right. There's a million analogies I could use. Theatre is brilliant, is absolutely brilliant for it, and it pains me that it's not more widely utilized in business. Theatre. There's so many lessons, but I would say that the main one is, uh, you have to appear. If you're on stage and an audience is watching you, you are hearing this for the very first time. You know, when I'm on stage and I'm performing in a show that I've done 700 times. I know the line that's coming, but the audience don't know that. I have to I have to be on stage and listen as if I'm hearing it for the very first time, and react or respond in that way. Otherwise, the audience will never believe it. And so I think that is the way that we have to also, when we have to go through life, is that, yes, people will be, potentially struggling with similar issues, but we have to address it as if this is also the first time we're hearing it. And it helps people to navigate their own journeys, if we treat each one individually, like we're hearing this for the first time. Mm.
That's fascinating. So how does that show up in corporate or business communications or business storytelling?
Well,
How does that show up?
it's all about listening. There's you walk out on stage, and what worked on Tuesday night doesn't work on Wednesday night. You
Mm.
have to listen. The audience are going to give you signals. They're going to tell you that, okay, we need to pick up the pace. This is an audience that needs a faster performance. Um, it's going to be nuanced every time, and we have to approach the way we communicate with our colleagues in the same way. Is that, one day we're talking to our data analyst. The next day, that same data analyst is a mother of three who's got a sick kid at home. And we have to take that on board. We've got to listen to it every day, because we're not going to know how to deal with situations if we're not listening and exposing ourselves to the nuanced changes that people can have. You know, super important, listening.
What's the most we're in a world, some of us are feeling this particularly, where disinformation and communication seems to have some real serious outcomes and some significant impact. What has you really alarmed about communicating and storytelling in the world today?
Um, I suppose. Oh man, I mean, that's a big one. For me, it's that I think there is the realization that, and I think with technology coming in, is the realization that technology armed with human centric storytelling is a weapon. Um, we have access to people's phones, computers, televisions, whatever it might be, and if then we're able to package it in a story, that people can connect with, boy oh boy, there's some power in that. And so I think for me, something that is not being addressed properly really is the responsibility that comes with storytelling. That it's extremely powerful, and we have to recognize that if we're told by a communication coach, hey, tell your story, use storytelling, be vulnerable, do all these things, the tools that you're being given, or one has been given, is for business storytelling, are the same tools that con artists use. Calls to action, being vulnerable, using someone's name, to all these things. They're all the same thing, and we have to be very, very careful that how we finish the story. So how is the story going to end for the person that we are telling it? Is it going to be that they buy a product that they can count on, that they're happy to talk to their friends about and share? Or is it a product that leaves them out of pocket and feeling as if they've, that they're a victim of crime? So I think that's the story is not about the one that we want to tell, but the story that someone needs to hear, and we need to know how it's going to end for them. We need to look at storytelling, not just on a very short time scale. Yeah.
So how do you advise your clients? It seems like there's a fine line between influence and manipulation
Mm-hmm.
in stories, and the power we have in that.
Yep.
How do you advise your clients and customers to stay on the right side of the line?
Right. Yeah. So this is a tough one. No, it's not tough. It's really quite simple. We look at communication, especially in public speaking, and talking to, like whether you're at an AGM, with, wherever it might be, even if it's a one-on-one, we at the moment seem to be concentrating on body language, eye contact, narrative frameworks, heroes' journeys. There's all this jargon out there. And I think it boils down, we've got three questions that we need to answer, or 3 points first, which is get your story straight is number one. Get your story straight, know it inside out and back to front. Number two, believe in it 100% with your heart and soul. Do not lie. And number three is behave in a way that supports your story. That's it. Once you've got that, because your behavior is what is the foundation for it. Once you've got those things, then you can start looking at, how many slides to use, all that kind of all that kind of peripheral stuff that people seem to concentrate on means nothing unless you can back your story up with proper behaviors. I always think that I'm just trying to think of stories buy you time, behaviors earn you trust.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. That your story is only buying you time until you are found out, and it will happen.
Yeah. I love that. So know, believe, behave, and it's all about trust.
Yeah, it's all about trust. Yeah.
All about trust. I love that. So help us trust in your learning, both here at academyEX and out into the future. So tell me about a moment when you applied something from your learning at academyEX, and made a real difference in your world. You made a real impact.
Man, so I've always been very technically minded, even though I was on stage. I potentially haven't had the means to be able to know how to do these things. And I suppose the biggest, um, oh, yes, I suppose the biggest one for me would have been building the Bank of Smiles, the app that I built. Um, uh, with what I'd learned from that experience. But I think the learnings from doing it were far greater than just what I was able to take from. I think that academyEX, or Tech Futures as it was, gave me a lot of tools, and I knew the right questions to ask. But once I dived into it, that was another. I mean, that's just another like rabbit hole on its own. When you're
Tell us
actually
about the Bank of Smiles. It's the most fantastic name, and it sounds like the most fantastic project.
well, it started. I had my project for my master's project. I had decided on building a freelance employment platform for over 65s because I felt that there were a huge amount of skills and experience that we were going to be losing as a society that we needed to keep hold of. And people were having to work longer. Is there a way that we could benefit both sides? And so I decided on that. And then I had the idea for the Bank of Smiles, which was sometimes just a smile from a stranger can be all we need in our day to really to give us hope. Really, it can give us hope. It's as simple as that. And so I thought, what if we treated that very simple human interaction in the same way that we deal with money, right? Because the fact of the matter is that we're happy to to pay our accountants huge amounts of money, but we're reluctant to pay teachers. Um, so it oh yeah, a can of worms there. Yeah. So that's one of those things where I thought, what if we treated the human experience the same way as we all this with the same relevance and importance that we do money. And so I built and had the idea for the app, which was that you could make a deposit into the application, which was a 3-second smile, a video um, that would be stored there. And when someone anywhere in the world felt that they needed a little bit of a lift for whatever reason, they could then go and make a withdrawal. And it just had 2 buttons, deposit and withdrawal. And then so I designed that, and then as I was building it, I came up with a lot of features on it were forced upon me actually because of data privacy requirements and things like that. Which I mean, it was a massive learning curve. It was brilliant, but that's the way it works. You can deposit a smile, and then when someone needs one, they will be sent. They can watch it in real time randomly, and they're selected randomly from the database. And it was an amazing, and it's quite sticky as well. It's quite addictive when you sit there and because you can just you're not flicking through them, but you can select one that is, and you will never see the same smile twice, and it's followed by an affirmation, and it also has location services on it, so you can, if I deposit a smile, I can watch it travel around the world as people need a smile in different countries, and the same way when someone in Britain needs a smile, my face will come up, for instance, and down the bottom it will say Matthew Cutts, Kingsland, New Zealand, or something like that. So, yeah.
I can only imagine the number of people who are just smiling, hearing about a Bank of Smile, and that already it's still passing its through as a wonderful currency. I'll take it over the gold
Yeah.
standard every time. Smile standard.
Yeah.
Um, we do have a few minutes for questions. I'm going to look at my radio operator here. We don't have any yet, so I'm going to continue on. So help me. What I'm still smiling. What unexpected opportunities have emerged from your learning?
Where I am right now.
Yeah, tell
It's
me about
like
where you are right now. What makes
everything everything so what I did is when I was at Tech Futures and I was building the employment platform, I made a couple of videos to really to demonstrate the technology and how it might work. And yeah, from there, those videos were seen, and I ended up. I think that people thought, yeah, great product, great technology, but the way that you're able to humanize it is fantastic. And that from there, I was asked to do the digital boost campaign and to write the introduction and to kind of like make it accessible and humanize the technology for New Zealand businesses that were having to upgrade their systems and look at you know working differently now in the digital age. And I suppose from there, that was one of those realizations where, as much as I love tech and as much as I'd love to be a lawyer or working in that space, my communication skills are really it's what I do best, and probably what gives me the most joy is being able to pass on 30 years worth of experience of understanding how to listen to an audience, and to work out what they need to hear, because that's what it comes down to. It's not what I want to tell someone, it's what they need to hear at that point in time to allow them to thrive. And so that would be the biggest takeaway for me, was really coming to terms with the fact that even though I don't want to be on stage, it's still possible to communicate and to help other people communicate. Yeah.
Fabulous. So what's next on your horizon, Matthew? What you going to do next? You going to deposit it into the files?
Yeah, I know. You see, you're only allowed to deposit one at a time. You can't. That's it. And that's also a data privacy requirement. There's so many things there. Yeah, so you can, if you do want to put a new smile, and you have to delete the old one.
Oh,
So
fair. You only get
yeah,
one at a time.
yeah.
Oh,
So yeah, and
it's a tight commodity.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, and so for the future, really, just what I want to do is get into that space where, uh, I suppose, to help individuals and groups with communication, whether it be public speaking, but I think also internal communications. How do we communicate a vision that people can get behind and understand what their role is? I think a lot of the time that's something that is overlooked. To really understand what my role is in making sure that we as a group of people are able to successfully achieve the vision. So there are so many layers to communication and getting the best out of people, and it's a big niche. So that's one of the things that I'm working on myself, is to make sure, right, what is the offering at this point in time. I can always expand on that, but at the moment, just you're working on that to make sure that I'm right in the zone.
Um, we all have a responsibility of contributing to Aotearoa, New Zealand, and being a community of 5 million people, a little more at this point, actually.
Mm-hmm.
We all bear responsibility in contributing to the fabric of the world. And our stories, I mean, they are, some of the most powerful artifacts and collections that we have. Yulia Leolua has asked a really powerful question that I'd love to hear your response to, which is, as someone who has successfully bridged creative expertise and digital innovation, well done. What insights can you share about using effective communication to authentically engage with Maori and Pacifica communities in ways that respects and uplifts their cultural narratives?
Oh, I first of all, I would thank you for the question. I wouldn't like to comment too much on specific communities and but again, it is understanding. There's no way that I can possibly help someone communicate unless I've listened and understand their point of view, their experiences, and their needs. That's what it comes down to. Because I'm certainly not going to. This is how we get into all the trouble that we get into around the world, is me sitting here thinking, oh, I know what you need to do to what you need to say, without fully understanding, and then to guide. Really, that's all you do. Is that everyone's story is so incredibly precious. It is not a commodity. It is not content. These are hard-earned stories that have passed down through generations. And there is a personal toll that we all take when we tell it. We are putting ourselves out there. We're making ourselves vulnerable. And when our stories don't get the reaction that we hope for, even if it's dead silence, that can be a pretty horrible reaction when we feel that we have something incredibly important to say that people need to hear. We make the time and the effort to put it out there, and then we get nothing. Can almost be as bad as only getting criticism. So we have to treat our stories with utmost respect, and understand that we have no control over the response other people may have for them. It's very, very important that we're kind to ourselves when we tell a story, because we can't control that. We know we can understand what our objective is in telling the story, but we have no control over the outcome or the response to it. So be extremely kind to yourself if you decide to tell a story, because that's probably the most important one. Mm.
I think it's just remarkable the sort of paradigms of trust that you have negotiated through your career, from being authentic on a stage to capturing people's smiles to creating a space for over 65s to continue to contribute, and just to create that telling stories is as much or more about listening as it is about telling.
Mm.
I think it's just such a remarkable combination, and I love that on your journey, we've played a part in that. But really, it's lovely to be in your radar more
Mm.
than anything else. So Matthew Cutts, I have to say, you are indeed exceptional. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Loved having you. There's been a few extra questions which I'll send your way. Maybe you can respond to them in an email. We'll make sure that they get sent out across on our socials as part of
Yeah,
the story. Um,
absolutely. Find me on LinkedIn and fire a question through if you need to. Absolutely, I'm more than happy to have a look at those.
oh, you are, as I said,
Mm.
exceptional. I am gonna close the space to so that folks can return to their daily life. Me karakia tato, ke whakairiha te tapu, ke wātia a te ara, ke turuki whakataha ai, ke turuki whakataha ai, homie, huie, tai kie. Thank you once, thank you twice, thank you three times, everyone, for spending some time with us and for celebrating Matthew and his immense achievements. Go well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.